Chapter 56, Just Say Yes. Laura immediately jumped away from him and turned back to him. William Walton, if you dare to do this again, I will go. He looked at her blushing face and did not make a fuss. He sat down and looked at the food in the lunchbox. Crab meat, braised beef, and vegetable salad. This too much. Of course, since I owe you, I have to thank you well. She was the one who wanted to pay the bill last night, but when she went to pay, the waiter said that William Walton had shares in the restaurant and that it would be free for lunch. She asked him why he didn't tell her in advance. He said, I was afraid to disturb your sincerity when I saw how devout you were in mourning for your purse. At that time, she hated him. After all, she ate with a painful heart. She didn't have a fine taste of the wine, nor did she have a good taste of the dishes. When she finished her meal and went downstairs, she first walked to the 34th floor before taking the elevator back to the 12th floor. Standing in the elevator, she gave an inexplicable smile. If she thought about it carefully, wasn't this supposed to be a clandestine love affair? Getting off work at night, she politely rejected William Walton's request to send her home. She went downstairs alone and took the bus home. Arriving at the entrance of the district, she saw Nick Anderson. He walked over warmly and was a little surprised. Brother, why are you here? I know your defense is over, and I've been looking for time to congratulate you, but the last 2 days have been too busy, she chuckled. You're busy, it's not a big deal. To me, this is a very memorable event. He pointed at his car. Come, get in. I will take you to celebrate. Where are you going? Go eat, he said, pushing her from behind and sending her to the car before driving her to dinner. When Nick Anderson finished ordering the dishes, the waiter left the private room. He said, Laura, do you want to stay in school as a teacher? How was it? Did you get any results? She nodded. Yes, the name list has already been passed down. A student from our department will stay with me. Must you do this? Auntie is no longer here. You don't have to do this for her dream. She shrugged, smiled, and said nothing. Laura, why don't you come to my company? I'll give you a position, and in the future, we will always be together so that we can look out for each other. You don't have to worry about Betty Anderson and my mother. They will be okay with that. She shook her head firmly and said, Brother, please spare me. You know that I'm not good with the Anderson family. But Dad is your father after all, so why don't you just say yes, we will forever be family. I wouldn't do that, she said, shaking her head firmly. I don't have a father. Laura, your dad's heart isn't completely devoid of you. You? Brother, if you continue on this topic, then I will go back, she said with a serious expression. I told you, don't talk about family matters between us. Nick Anderson sighed, and just as he was about to say something, he saw John Anderson being pushed in by a waiter. He stood up and frowned. Dad, Mom, why are you guys here? Helen Anderson glanced at Nick Anderson and said unhappily, I called your secretary. He said that you would go to eat with your sister and leave first. Betty Anderson is still sleeping at home. Who else can you accompany for dinner? Mom, enough. The company has been so busy with this woman that you're still in the mood to eat with her. Nick, what are you thinking about? The matter at the company has nothing to do with Laura, Nick Anderson said in a cold voice. Don't push the blame onto Laura. Am I wrong? If this woman did not provoke William Walton, would the Walton Group target the Anderson family without any warning? For the past few years, our two families have been at odds with each other, but we've all retreated beyond the line of fire. Nobody stepped out of line first, but it was all because of this woman. John Anderson's voice was not loud. He looked at Nick Anderson and said, Nick, take your mother out first. Dad, Mom, it wasn't easy for me, so don't. She stood up and looked at Nick Anderson. Big brother, you should bring your mother out first. Nick Anderson exhaled. Laura, how about this? You go home today, I'll handle this place myself. You can leave first. Laura smiled at him. He knew that since John Anderson had brought Helen Anderson to find him, whatever he wanted to say, even if she wasn't listening today, another day, he would use his way to bring her before him and make her listen. Since that was the case, why would she make an unnecessary move? Helen Anderson was annoyed. John Anderson, what do you want to say to her? Why should I go out, that shameless mother of hers? Miss Anderson. Her gentle face turned cold as she looked at her. If you continue to humiliate my mother, tomorrow, I will go to the reporters and reveal my identity. You also don't want anyone from the Anderson family to divide the wealth, right? You are such a shameless woman, just say one more word and I'll tear your mouth apart. John Anderson looked at Nick Anderson. Nick Anderson sighed. He knew that if his mother stayed here, she would say more. Thus, he dragged her out. The father and daughter were the only ones left in the room. They sat down. Laura moved her gaze to the side. John Anderson looked at her. Mr. Anderson, don't be around the bush. You and I aren't suited to playing with those provocative things. Laura Anderson. John Anderson was unhappy. She said, forget it. I won't correct you in any way. Just speak. What exactly is going on between you and William Walton? It's my business. He's targeting the Anderson family. Did you instigate him? She pursed her lips and thought for a moment. Who knows, maybe, right. It's a waste of time. If you hate us, just come at us. Don't play these little tricks. Your mother will be disappointed if she were alive while you're in such a state of self-indulgence. As I said, don't mention my mother. Your mother is not a bad person. Of course, she said, looking at him with a face full of resentment. She's just a blind fool who's been cheated for her entire life. John Anderson frowned and looked away. Laura, there are some things that aren't as simple as you think. I also have my difficulties. I've already told you, it's not suitable for us to invite each other. She stood up. If you're done with what you want to say, then can I leave now? Seeing that she was about to leave, he said, Leave William Walton. I have arranged for a man who suits you. Find a time to meet him. If it's suitable, marry him and leave Philadelphia. Chapter 57. Today is a day to drink. What if I say no? It's impossible between you and William Walton. Laura, clenching her fist, she said, That's my problem, so I won't trouble you, Mr. Anderson. Saying that, she picked up her bag, turned around and walked out of the room. Seeing her come out, Nick Anderson walked towards her. Laura. Helen walked forward with a face full of indignation and pulled Nick Anderson aside. Laura, you slut, listen carefully, if you dare to do this again in the future. Mom. Nick Anderson interrupted Helen Anderson with a dark expression. Can you stop talking? Nick Anderson, you have hardened your wings. You helped that slut's daughter to scold me? Are you trying to piss me off, huh? She said to Nick Anderson. I'll go back first. She walked around him and was about to leave, but Nick Anderson wanted to stop her, but Helen Anderson grabbed his wrist. Listen carefully, I won't allow you to meet this woman again in the future. Nick Anderson shook off her hand. You're meddling in too many things. Nick? Helen Anderson held him back with a sincere face. I know, there are some truths that you have long known. I always supported you, but she doesn't suit you. Nick Anderson didn't say anything. He only took out his hand and quickly left. When he came out, Laura Green had gone. He rubbed his hair in frustration. Damn it, damn it! She sat in the taxi with a slightly dazed look in her eyes. The driver asked for a long time where you were going before she finally reacted. Please keep driving. She calmed her mood and called William Walton. She had to know, was William Walton targeting the Anderson group? William Walton did not pick up the phone even after the bell rings ended. She turned to the driver. Master, let's go to the University Road. She called Judy Allen and quickly got through. Are you busy? No, I'm watching a TV show. I'll go to school to look for you. Let's eat together. How could you know that I haven't eaten? What do you want to eat? He just happened to call. What do you want to eat? Let's go where there are wine and meat. Hey, are you planning on drinking with me? Is that for real? I'll pick you up from school. Judy Allen became excited. All right, then we won't leave until we're drunk. Wait for me. The two of them arrived at a bar. They took a seat and ordered a dozen beers. She also asked the waiter to open all the beers. When Judy Allen saw her, she felt that something was wrong. Asked if there was anything wrong, but she said nothing. She only said that this was the final act of indulgence before receiving the diploma, and she wanted to get drunk today. An hour and a half later, William Walton, who was working overtime, returned to his office from the conference room. He saw the light of his cell phone flashing on the table. He turned on the phone and found that the missed call was warm. He smiled and dialed back. No one answered the first time. He raised his eyebrows. This woman was angry? He impatiently dialed again. This time he did call, but the person who answered was not her, but an unfamiliar woman. Hello, no matter what business you have now, please call again tomorrow morning. The phone's owner is disabled, so she can't answer your call. 15 minutes later, William Walton appeared in the bar. At that time, Laura was swaying back and forth on the chair. 4 waiters were surrounding the chair, and a very stylish woman. She pointed to the crystal ball hanging from the chandelier on the ceiling and said, I want this. I don't care. I want this. Judy Allen glanced at the person at the door. Wasn't that the William Walton that would only appear in the news? Isn't this too cool? He's even more handsome than he was on the news. But why would he appear here? Did he enter the wrong door? Miss, be careful. Come down quickly. If you break our lights, we will lose money. Judy Allen regained her senses and hurriedly raised her head to look at Laura. Laura, come down first. I'll accompany you to buy someone larger and brighter than this, okay? No, I want this. I'm taking this lamp. Give it to her if she wants anything. William Walton's cold voice sounded. The few of them turned their heads around and were shocked. William Walton took out a card and handed it over to the waiter. Judy Allen was flabbergasted. What? What's going on? She gently lowered her head and also saw William Walton. She chuckled as she pointed at his face. William Walton. Then her body swayed and she fell. William Walton walked up and grabbed her shoulders, then pulled her into his embrace and helped her safely land on the ground. Stood firmly in his embrace, turned her head and looked at him, then pointed at the surface. I want that, William Walton. I want that big crystal ball. Without saying a word, William Walton stepped on the chair and took down a crystal ball. The lamp was on the verge of collapsing. He came down and handed it to her. Gracefully, she took the crystal ball and held it in her arms. Then she said to a group of people she did not know, This is mine, mine. Everyone was stunned. How could it be? William Walton said, All of you can leave. A few attendants left and William Walton looked at Judy Allen, who was still in shock. You're her roommate? Judy Allen hurriedly nodded her head. He naturally embraced Laura. I will take her with me. You should go back and have a rest as soon as possible. After he finished speaking, he picked her up. With the crystal ball in her arms, Laura Green obviously became more obedient. At first, Judy Allen was still in a daze, but when William Walton walked out, she reacted. How could she allow someone to take away Laura Green? She chased after him. William Walton walked very fast. He had already reached the door and stuffed the Laura Green into the carriage. She stepped forward and shouted, "Wait, sir. We don't even know each other. Why should I let you bring my friend away?" "According to what you said, I don't know you, and I have no reason to let you take her away. We are roommates," William Walton said confidently. "Then my relationship with her might be even closer than yours." Judy Allen was startled for a moment, but when she looked at him carefully, she realized that there was a pen he was wearing in his suit. Her mouth was almost arched in surprise. Laura had once said that her identity could not be exposed. At that time, she joked, "Are you the illegitimate daughter of a rich family?" At that time, her eyes were full of sadness. Although she didn't say anything, Judy Allen felt that she guessed right. Now that she saw this pen, she was even more certain. "Could it be you? Are you the kind brother?" William Walton raised his eyebrows. "You knew that she has a brother?" Judy Allen pointed to the pen in his pocket. "I picked this out with her. She said that she wanted to give it to her brother. She also had it curved, but she didn't let me see the contents." William Walton lowered his head and looked at the pen in his pocket. "Then, can I take her away now?" Judy Allen nodded. "Then please take good care of her." He turned around and looked at Laura Green in the car. Of course. This was such a rare opportunity, of course. He would take good care of her. Chapter 58. Laura Green. It was you who started it. On the way, she rested on his shoulder, desperately hugging the crystal ball as if she was about to fall asleep. As the car turned the corner, she suddenly sat upright and let out a dry cough. "Stop the car." The driver hurriedly stopped. When the car came to a stop, she immediately opened the door and ran out, only to feel another wave of retching coming from the side of the road. He got out of the car and walked over to her, patting her back. "You clearly can't drink too much, but why did you do that?" She turned her head and looked at him with misty eyes. "Huh, William Walton, hiccup. Ha, you are William Walton." "Yes, I am William Walton." She shook her head. No, I can't be friends with William Walton." "William Walton. Burp. It's a plague." "Why am I a plague?" "William Walton, it's related to the Anderson family. Anything related to the Anderson family, I want to get away from it all. It's all a plague." She knelt and wrapped her arms around the tree in front of her. "Mr. Tree, I want to be a sister of you. From now on, you are my relative, okay?" After she finished speaking, she held on to William Walton's collar with one hand. "William Walton, I have a family now too." Seeing her giggling as she said this, he felt an indescribable pain in his heart. He put both hands on her shoulders and said, "Come on, I'll take you back." "I'm not leaving. I want to be with my family. I want to be with them forever." William Walton whispered into her ear. "I'll bring your family members home, okay? Really? I never lie." She held the crystal ball in one hand and tried to stand up. However, in that instant, a wave of disgust rose in her heart. Without any warning, she threw up all over him. In that instant, he gaped in astonishment, for the first time in his life. On the other hand, she acted as if nothing had happened, laughed out loud, and shook her body. "William Walton, you are so dirty." William Walton gritted his teeth. If she wasn't drunk, he would have crippled her. He took off his jacket, threw it away, and helped her up. "Get in the car and go home." The crystal ball fell from the water, and she scrambled to retrieve it before hugging it again. He frowned. "You like this crystal ball that much?" She put her hand to her lips and shooed. She looked around cautiously. "I'm telling you, this is a magic ball. I can use it to turn my mother back." She laughed. He frowned slightly and shoved her back into the car. The driver sat in the car, not daring to make a sound. This Miss Green, how could she be so special? If it was anyone else, they would probably be skinned alive. By the time he returned to the Walton family's villa, the perpetrator had already fallen asleep. William Walton carried her back to his room as the butler hurried over to help. Seeing William Walton in such a state, Butler was also startled for a moment. Then he said, "Young master, I'll take care of Miss Green. Go and clean yourself." William Walton placed her on the bed, and just as he was about to get up, she hugged him warmly as if she was afraid of losing something. "Mom, don't go." He once again carried her horizontally and looked at Butler. "You guys can go rest, I'll do it." "But, I can." There was no doubt in William Walton's eyes. The butler left with others. William Walton took her to the bathroom. At first, he took off his jacket and washed off the filth on his body before helping her clean it. Taking off all her clothes, he swallowed and reminded himself that he couldn't do anything. However, as he washed her with the water, she slipped into his arms as if she were boneless. It suddenly turned him on. She naturally embraced him and gave him another hug, as if she was trying to find a comfortable position to sleep. He endured and endured, but in the end, he was still unable to hold it in. He turned off the water, picked her up, and carried her straight back to the bedroom, where he laid her on the bed. "Laura, you were the one who started it." With that, he leaned forward and kissed her soft lips. Ah! Laura Green could barely breathe because of his kiss. With a moan, the petite girl shrank into William Walton's embrace and instinctively wrapped her arms around his waist. As if he had received an allowance, William Walton spread the kiss down. It was hard to tell what was the reality and what was a dream. When William Walton wanted to take a step further, she shrank back in pain and covered her eyes and started sobbing. William Walton's heart tightened. He stopped his movements, walked up, and embraced her. She choked on her emotions. Mom, I hate you. Why don't you bring me along? I don't like this world. I don't like them. Why didn't you let me die with you? Why? Mom, why do other people have a good father but I don't have one? She hugged him tightly and said with force, Take me away, okay? I don't want to see them. I don't like it. William Walton gently embraced her and caressed her back that was as smooth as snow. He comforted her softly. With me here, everything will be fine. She cried and fell asleep. William Walton was hugged tightly by her. His heart was filled with fire, but he couldn't do anything. After all, taking advantage of someone in a dangerous situation wasn't something that a good man would do. This was the first time he found out that this woman was truly a peerless demoness. He fell into her hands again. He swore to himself that the next time she was awake, he would punish her. She slept until she woke up naturally. Laura blurrily opened her eyes, looking at the strange environment. She frowned slightly. Her brain reacted 2 times before she abruptly sat up. She looked down under the covers, naked, then around the room and started to feel afraid. What had happened? Wasn't she drinking with Judy? She bit her lip, almost crying. Just then the door was pushed open and William Walton walked in. For some reason, the moment she saw William Walton, she instinctively heaved a sigh of relief. After all, if she got drunk twice and slept with 2 different men, it would break her down and make her want to die. Her chastity had not been open to this extent. Seeing her innocent expression, William Walton forced himself from smiling. You're awake? She scratched her forehead. Why am I here? I'm also very curious. You called me last night for no reason and wanted me to take you home. You begged and cried and shouted for me to take you in. Did something happen? Huh? She bit her lips gently and unconsciously clutched the blanket tightly with her hands. Am I? Otherwise, is that someone else who is sitting in front of me? Her face blushed. No, it's impossible. I was drinking with my good friend last night. How could I call you? I don't know about that. I only know that you hugged me and didn't let me go last night and you even vomited all over me. She immediately held her breath and covered her mouth with her hand. She looked at him with blinking eyes and said, No, I don't remember vomiting. I was afraid that you would forget after you woke up from drinking, so I let someone throw the evidence in the yard. It hasn't been washed yet. Do you want to go down and have a look? Her face instantly turned red like an apple. I'm sorry. I must be crazy. Forget it. Get up. The chapel has opened. The chapel has opened. What has it got to do with me? Chapter 59. There shouldn't be a mouse hole, right? Didn't you tell me to marry you? Hearing this, she burped in fright and looked at him. Am I? That's right. Stop doubting it. It's you. You said that you want me to marry you and help you fight monsters. Anderson family is a monster. What did Anderson family provoke you yesterday? Wake up. Let's go get married. I'll help you fight monsters. She didn't want to listen any longer. She felt like she needed to find a mouse hole and calm down. That? William Walton, I was drunk last night. Maybe I spoke some nonsense after drank. Just pretend you didn't hear it. All I know is that you wanted to marry me so much that you would come to my house in the middle of the night and offer yourself up. Her mind went blank as she recalled some very erotic scenes. Wasn't that a dream? She stretched out her hand and bit her thumb. She felt ashamed and embarrassed. Why aren't you speaking? I'm thinking that since your family is so luxurious, there shouldn't be any mouse holes, right? William Walton could not help but laugh out loud. He shook his head and turned to leave the room. She kept breaking down and slapped her head twice. She turned around and lay on the bed. Then she knocked her head against the pillow. She was about to die. What should she do? But before she could finish feeling ashamed, the door opened once again, and William Walton returned. Seeing her like this, William Walton reminded himself as he held back his laughter. After all, she had tortured him all night. How could he let this little demoness free during the day? In a split second, Laura Green sat up straight and looked at him. William Walton placed a new set of clothes on the bed. Your clothes are too dirty to wear anymore. I chose this for you. William Walton went out and she took a bath. She changed her clothes and came out. When she went downstairs, she felt that the servants of the Walton family were looking at her strangely. Arriving at the living room, William Walton said, Come and eat breakfast with us. No, I'm not hungry. She shook her head. She raised her wrist to check the time, exaggerating. Oh, I'm going to be late. I need to hurry to the company. It's about an hour and a half before work. Sk. The bus is not a rocket. After breakfast, I'll take you there. After all, we have other things to do before we go. She blushed. This guy, he wouldn't take her to get married, would he? I really won't eat, William Walton said calmly. Butler, please take her to the seat. Embarrassed, she took the initiative to walk over and sit in front of him. Can I have a word with you alone? William Walton waved his hand and Butler led his people out. She said shamefully, I don't know what I said last night. I drank too much. Even if I did, please treat it as drunk. I don't intend to get married to you. I said it's you who won't marry me. Why you regret now? Miss Green, do you have a double personality? I've already said that I drank too much last night, but I'm very sober now. William Walton, can't we go over this again? When William Walton saw that she looked like she was about to collapse, he couldn't bear to do so. Forget it, but next time. She firmly shook her head. There won't be the next time. I need to stop drinking. Let's eat. Laura nodding her head. She only took 2 bites of the bread and said as if she thought of something, that last night, did we? She started to speak, but then stopped. How could she say that? He smirked. You want to ask me if we had sex yesterday? She blushed and nodded. I'm a man of principle. She exhaled. That's good. Then he continued. Before the last step, I stopped it in time. I don't want you to say that I am taking advantage of you. Last? One step? She swallowed. So, he has done all the former steps. In other words, the red mark she saw on her body in the mirror just now was not an alcohol allergy. Ah, so awkward. She did not say anything else and just quietly finished the meal. Before they left, William Walton seemed to have thought of something and pointed at the crystal lamp pendant on the table. Don't you need to bring your magic ball? She turned her head and looked at the tea table, confused. Magic? What is it? William Walton shook his head and laughed, then turned and walked out. She wondered, scratching her brow. What does that mean? What did this man mean? Walking out of the hallway and into the courtyard, she was puzzled to see someone planting a tree. The greenery in the yard had already been done so well, why was there another cherry blossom? William Walton naturally turned his head to look at her. I've planted your family here. When missing your family member, come and see it at any time. Huh? She was stunned again. William Walton looked at her while laughing uncontrollably. Ah, what? Don't you think this tree looks familiar? She looked at him speechlessly. What are you talking about? William Walton laughed. If you don't know, then forget it. For the current you, not knowing is the best result. Let's go. When he got into the car, she said worriedly. It's not appropriate for me to go there in your car. You only have 2 choices. 1, be late. 2nd, get in my car and get to the company on time. For a moment, she was a person with a sense of time. Without saying anything further, she opened the car door and sat inside. It was very quiet in the car. She turned around and looked at the scenery outside the window. When she passed by the cherry blossom long street and saw the cherry blossoms on the roadside, a terrifying scene suddenly flashed through her mind. Oh my God. She put her hand to her lips. He looked at her. What happened? That tree. She turned her head to look at him. The tree in your courtyard. What, did you remember? Her face flushed red. I must be dreaming. No, I still remember clearly that you had an oath with that tree. You hugged it tightly, and I promised you that I would bring it home, so you were willing to let go of it. So this morning, I kept my promise and went to get the tree back. You don't have to be so grateful to me. Anyway, you were drunk at the time, so you were the most powerful woman. She closed her eyes and covered her face. He hugged his chest and said with a carefree expression, I just don't know if that tree will be your younger sister or your younger brother. Judging by the age of the tree, it definitely won't be elder brother and sister. Laura held her mouth and turned to stare at him. He said calmly, What's wrong? Could it be that when other people raise dogs as their sons, you want to raise trees as your son or daughter? She gritted her teeth and said, You'd better shut up. All right, he answered indifferently, turned his head to look outside the window and couldn't help but raise the corner of his lips. This woman was truly too interesting. Chapter 60. Someone else. She insisted on getting off at the intersection, which was not far from the company. Getting off the car, she carried her bag and jogged to the office. She was in a hurry and finally made it. However, she found out that she was the last one to arrive. With a bit of guilt, she returned to her seat and calmed her breathing, which had become faster after she ran. Then, she started to look through the information. After 2 hours, she stood up, stretched her muscles and took her water cup to the tea house to get some water. Inside, the voices of several women were heard. 100%. I don't know. Didn't you see the clothes she was wearing? That's the most popular new model of Chanel. It was released a week ago, $1,000. I'm a fan of this brand. I can distinguish the false product from the good ones. That's 100% genuine. That's right. How could a recently graduated university student afford Chanel? That seems to be right. She is the lover of Tom. That's right. Look at her face. She looks like a beauty that will bring disaster upon her family. She pushed the door open and walked in. They immediately stopped when they saw her. She politely smiled at them, took the water, and left the tea house. Back in her seat, her cell phone rang. Seeing that it was Nick Anderson, she immediately turned off her phone and did not pick up. At noon, when it was time to get off work, everyone began to leave. Amy, who was also an intern, walked over. Laura, do you want to come to the cafeteria to eat with me? She closed the document. All right. The 2 of them went downstairs to the cafeteria and she ordered a lunchbox. While waiting for their food, her cell phone rang. Seeing that it was William's call, she said to Amy, I'm going to pick up a call. She took her cell phone to the side and picked it up. She said in a low voice, Hello. When are you off duty? I've already gotten off work and am reporting to your company's canteen for lunch. What about my lunch? I didn't have time to do it this morning. Didn't you know all about it? So, you're saying that you don't care about me? She pursed her lips. I didn't cook, so how could I care about you? I'll get my secretary to prepare it. Come up and accompany me to eat. It's boring to eat alone. But I came to the restaurant with my colleagues. I've already ordered the noodles, so it's not good for me to leave now. As soon as she finished speaking, her food was ready. She hurriedly said, That's it. I'm going to pick up my food. William Walton was unhappy, but he could not act as though he was in a rush. Laura brought the food back and sat down. Amy laughed. This is the first time I've seen a rich person eat lunchbox. I thought you guys wouldn't eat these. When I went downstairs to find you to eat, I was a little worried that you would reject me. I didn't think that you would be so easy to get along with. Rich people? Are you talking about me? Yep. She smiled, but in a speechless manner. I'm not a rich person. I'm just short of money. You are kidding, she wondered. I'm not joking. I'm poor. How could you have such a misunderstanding? A poor person can't afford a piece of Chanel. Chanel? This was the second time she'd heard this word before. She lowered her head to look at her clothes. Could it be that the clothes William Walton prepared for her were something Chanel? She didn't know anything about brands, she just wore them. So, this morning that group of people were discussing a lover, it referred to her? These clothes are replicas, she said calmly. How could that be? Our department has an older sister who is a fan of Chanel's. She said your clothes are 100% authentic. If I have money, I will send them somewhere else rather than buying clothes. She pursed her lips and calmly ate the noodles. Amy looked at her in disbelief. Really? She smiled. Why would I lie to you? Amy was skeptical, but did not say anything. After dinner, the two went upstairs together. A lot of people in the office gathered around to chat, and when they saw the two return, someone shot them a look. Amy quickly returned to her desk. She took her cup and went to the tea house to pour herself a cup of water. While drinking the water, she dialed Judy Allen's number. Judy Allen picked up the phone and asked lazily, Are you sober up now? What happened to me last night? How would I know? You look like you're risking your life for the sake of alcohol. Wait a moment. Let's not talk about this for now. Your brother is too handsome. Does he have a girlfriend? I see that the news didn't mention that he has a girlfriend, so I still have a chance. Why don't you introduce me to him? If I can marry him, I can be your sister-in-law. My brother? Laura Green was puzzled. Could it be that her brother came to find her last night? Wait a moment, Judy. Let's make it clear. Whose brother? You have no idea about who sent you home last night, don't you? Who? Damn, you don't know? Did your brother just send you home and leave? Which brother? She was even more confused. William Walton took her home yesterday, not her brother. Thinking about there were so many siblings in the Walton family, she said the owner of the Pen, the famous figure in Philadelphia, William Walton. Tsk, that Judy. All right, stop hiding it. I saw him yesterday. He was the one who came to the restaurant to pick you up. I didn't expect that you would be the invisible little princess. Your brother is way too spoilt, isn't he? He spoils me? Yeah, damn it, I feel embarrassed just thinking about it. Do you remember when you were drunk and insisted on taking the crystal pendant from the chandelier in the bar? She blushed and asked, Is there such a thing? Yes. And the result? In the end, your brother didn't say anything further. He took out his bank card and threw it to the waiter before jumping onto the chair. Then he stretched out his hand and pulled out a crystal ball for you, saying that it was a present for you. Burp. Thinking of the crystal ball she saw in his house this morning, she put her hand to her lips, placed the cup on the table, squatted down and covered her face with hands. Damn, this was so embarrassing. How would she face William Walton in the future? What could she do? She wanted to die. Someone pushed the door open and entered. Seeing her squatting there tenderly and dispiritedly, the other person shot her a sideways glance before she went off to make coffee. She stood up and said to Judy Allen, Judy, I still have some things to do here. I got to go. I'll see you later. Hanging up, she picked up her cup and was about to leave. At this moment, the employee who just came in also turned around. Before the two of them even met, the employee poured a cup of freshly brewed coffee onto her body.